Melton, 50 minutes away from Melbourne CBD. Together with property investor and buyer's agent Oliver Cheung, we drive the streets of this very talked about outer suburb, opening up the details of its economy, large infrastructure investments, good pockets, bad pockets, and the little details realestate.com just can't tell you. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast. If you're enjoying our Buying Borderless series, give us a comment on where you'd like to see an episode done on next. This episode is powered by our amazing show sponsors, InvestorKit, Inside 2, Property Strats, Full Circle Finance, and Future Proof Property Advisory. More about our show sponsors in the show notes below. But right now, let's start pulling apart the streets of Melton with Oliver Cheung. What can you tell me about the new hospital that's being built in Melton, mate?
Its budget at the moment is 900 mil as of now, obviously with escalation.
Turn left here?
Yep.
So all this vacant land is
Correct.
going to be hospital?
Yep. And I think what's important to note, it's just not the hospital, but it's all the other micro industries that gets attached to running a hospital. But when it comes down to property, why is a hospital so important for the housing sector? If we unpack who's working in the hospital, you've got an array of different departments, from cleaning services to students to admin, doctors to nurses, and all the way up to your consultants, your surgeons. So what that means from an income perspective, you've got the income being at the bottom of the scale of about 80, 60K to all the way up to about 600K. Housing wise, it gives us that diversity all the way to that $2 million house that a top paid surgeon can afford to the lower entry price range. It's both housing stock from owner occupiers to renters. So good pockets of Melton as an LGA, we've got to understand we've got Melton being almost a city centre, we've got Brookfield, we've got Melton South, and we've got Cobblebank the south of Melbourne CBD. Up towards the north, we've got Harkness, Melton, and Karinjang. So as a whole, the good pockets of how we're defining a good pocket is really benchmarking it against the owner-occupier appeal. That part of Melton or Karinjang, it really feels that solidifies that owner-occupier appeal.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, the willow trees, just picture walking down there with your family and so forth. And again, that's where it's the higher end of price point. Taking from an investor lens, that's all the right things you want to see when I'm personally doing boots on the ground. So the downside of that is if we're spending 750K from an investment point of view, I don't really think that's worth bang for buck. Spending 750K. There are better suburbs in Melbourne that would give us a better return on investment in a short amount of time.
Okay, and this also comes back to the fact of how pocketed Melton is.
Correct.
It's not about going Melton and tarring everything with the same brush.
No, because you've got different price points, you've got different pockets, you've got different owner-occupier appeal, you've got investor stock.
And personally, if I was spending 750 right now in Melbourne, I think I'd rather be 15Ks west or north.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's where it goes down to where do you get better value for your coin. So the bad pockets are obviously the remnants of what we call government social housing, which are in and close around Melton city centre. So whilst they have a social stigma of being bad, it's important to know that from a property perspective, there's equally being able to find value in them. We can definitely still capitalise on that being location to ultimately appeal to the right level of tenants. Train lines is an important one. Whilst we're not having every 5-10 minutes frequency of trains coming through in Melton, we have a V-Line Express, we've got the Regional Express, we've got the Freight Express coming by the train line, and Cobblebank Station is a classic example. We've got a manufacturing yard just outside of it, we've got heavy machinery happening, there's a lot of beeping every couple of minutes with machinery moving. Right across here you've got this train station and the beeping of machinery working, but population is the key to here. Right now we're about 180,000 people as of 2021-ish based on the latest census data. but it is projected in the next 30 years to be at 451,000. So if you break that down, it's 10,000 people moving into the LGA of Melton year on, year out. And you and I can see that there is absolutely no construction happening with vacant land right now. Obviously with Melton and surrounds, it's pretty known that there is a lot of open area, right? Unfortunately, it's not bushland, so we're not in a true fire zone, but ultimately fire, flood being a natural disaster element, that has the propensity to change over time with remodeling and environmental risk that comes through, especially with how climate change is moving in the future. Going back to both fire and flood zones, I guess Melton is one of these pockets where we're not in a flood zone, we're not in a bushfire zone. But again, if you want to be super conservative from a risk mitigation point of view of choosing your asset, I would potentially stay away from the peripherals of the fire zone. It really just gives you that additional security that, let's face it, fire moves, irrespective of a zone or not, right? It just gives you that guarantee that you are away from the surrounds of the fire zone. And again, that's applicable to any investment, not just Melton. So what locals really want, and it goes down to my number one rule, is understanding market demand, right? Like we've seen in Melton, we are a very vibrant, multicultural community. It is coming, a lot of migrants are coming into here.
There's almost this like country town feel to this main street.
But it's a very diverse country town type, right? So right now we're looking at the chicken shop.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Indian supermarket. We're looking at the Viet bakers down there. We're looking at the Thai cafe.
Mm-hmm.
What else are we looking at? You know, the urban Punjab store by the looks of it. So it's really solidifying that diverse community. So it really goes down to understanding how they basically live in a home, what they want. Typically they're coming with larger family. They do like large gatherings into the home. So you're really looking for that living space or even that second living space that can bring that sense of community in their house. That open backyard is quite an important one too. And also if they do have certain religious beliefs, that's quite important to their relevant culture. It's getting to know and understanding that. And your critical piece of information to lead to understanding that is your property managers. They understand the demographics, they understand how these people live, right? So they can feed that information back into that market research that we ultimately all do. In the second quarter of 2025, Cobblebank has a stock on market of 6 houses. However, it has a building approval of 183 houses, which is on the polar extreme opposite. Your days on market is sitting about 54 days, so a little bit longer than your benchmark of 30 days in the context of Melbourne. Your median price point of Cobblebank is at that 625k price point. Your renter to owner occupier ratio is literally sitting about 35%. So it's 35% renters versus owner occupiers. And your rental return is sitting at 3.78%, which is average, not the greatest, standard at the moment for Melbourne. Heading to now from Cobblebank, we're heading to what I believe is the nicer part of Melton LGA in a suburb called Karinjang. What's super exciting in that is we're going from Cobblebank where the building approvals for future stock is sitting about 183.
Okay.
Karinjang, your building approval is on the polar opposite. Do you want to take a guess?
7.
0.
Ah, I was close.
So we're going from 183, obviously coming from a very open estate, going to a very established part of Melton LGA, where the stock future building approvals as of today sit at 0. Your median price point sits around at 535 for a 3-bedroom. Your rental yield is a little bit higher than your Cobblebank at your 4.24%, which in my opinion for Melbourne standard is quite fantastic as of now. Your renter to owner occupier ratio is at 28%, so you have a lot less renters in Karinjang, which again testifies back to that owner occupier appeal, that it feels a lot more pleasant for a homeowner in Karinjang. However, You've got the better pockets in Karinjang, which is the owner-occupier appeal, so willow trees, the nice leaf trees, towards the rougher edges of Karinjang, again, the remnants of that social housing, which forms part of the outer boundary of Karinjang. So then we're going to your inner city Melton profile. Your stock market is 7. Your building approval equal is at 0, which is super exciting, and you can obviously understand why your building approval is at 0, because it's quite heavily dense around your main strip activities and there's hardly any land to basically develop. However, one of the downfalls, your days on market is sitting about 47 days. On the positive side, because you are at that lower price point of typical price of about 450 to 500 price point, your rental yields are slightly higher. So again, there is a market within a market of the LGA, and it really comes down to, as an investor, what are we trying to chase?
I think this is the thing that needs to be remembered out here as well. Whilst there is absolutely a lot of vacant land, that's undoubtable, it's not every part of the area that has tons of vacant land. And we're talking about a population of how many people live here again?
180,000 from the latest census.
Yeah, so it's not exactly a little one-horse town.
And I think too is you and I can't see any construction activity happening to convert the land into housing stock as of today. Why is Melton set for growth? Melbourne has the Melbourne Growth Corridor Plan, the 2050 vision, which has basically earmarked Melton as a principal town activity centre into the western suburbs, almost acting at that epicentre between Melbourne and Ballarat. So what this effectively means is it is getting state-funded attention, right, to ultimately revitalise the town centre. So what this means is building that social fabric of Melton in a very structured manner. So we're looking at infrastructure, we're looking at land releases, we're looking at building a vibrant community centre. And that local community centre that we're actually sitting right now is a fantastic modern new facility. So the other key component of why Melton is set for growth is population change. Currently right now, Melton has a total population of about 180,000 people. Projected over the next 30 years in 2050, that population size is projected to be about 480,000. If we then break that down year on year in, that's about 10,000 people coming into the LGA of Melton. As a data point, it's quite relevant if you're looking at it in isolation. It needs to be paired back into the supply stock levels. And that's equally going to understanding that your housing releases, all of the vacant land, is not currently coping to provide housing for that amount of people. The total LGA building approvals at the moment are sitting just above 4,000 houses. The typical dwelling size from the ABS data points are 2 people per dwelling. So if we do simple maths, right, the amount of housing approvals at the moment to house how many people, 2 people per housing, that really projects us to about 8,000 people being able to be housed in the city of Melton. When we have an incoming population of about 10,000 people, that's giving us a shortfall of 2,000 houses. So ultimately, as an investor, what this fundamentally means is that the demand is outpacing housing stock, and that's where we really see that supply and demand imbalance to start forcing that capital growth from a long-term perspective. Whilst Melton hasn't really shown signs of robust capital growth, it is showing signs of recovery, and at a point in time where it is an early market to be positioning ourselves in, supported by so much local infrastructure spending happening. Another important one is understanding, out of the 10,000 people moving into the city of Melton, where are they coming from, but equally what is their profession and what is their background. So as reported by the ABS from 2016 census to 2021, we've seen an increase in bachelor qualified and higher degrees of about 13,000 people supporting a bachelor qualified education. And at the same time too, at a vocational level, i.e. TAFE level, there's been an increase of 8,000 people coming across over that 4-year period. So that to me, Todd, is super exciting because it's showing signs of that demographic changing, that almost mid to working professional establishing and calling themselves a home in the city of Melton. So what is super exciting too is the affordability index of the local population. So Karinjang has an affordability index of 29 years to own, similar to Melton West. So what that translates to is a person buying in Karinjang or Melton West, if they're purchasing at the ripe age of 30 years plus 29 years, at 59 years of age, they would have fully paid their mortgage off. So to put that in context, Todd, we're going to go all the way down Bayside, Frankston North. Okay? Frankston North and Melton, it probably has the same socioeconomic profile. The affordability index of Frankston North is sitting at 45 years to own, which is almost double. So what this translates to, if I'm purchasing a home in Frankston North at 30 years of age plus 45, I will need to work up to 75 years of age to be able to fully pay my mortgage off. In comparison to Melton, I'll be at 59 years of age, and that's massive.